Welcome back to the Wolf of Property and Casualty. I'm your host, Derek Lasniak. 15 years of experience working in the middle market, upper middle market, national account space. Today's topic, claim reviews. We're going to talk about what they are, how to deploy them, why they're beneficial, why you can't rely on them for everything, and how to maximize them. Because this is one of those meetings that happens and becomes so normal and customary, especially as you get into kind of more comfortable relationships where you forget the importance of a claim review. I was so guilty of this. I would say that my participation in claim reviews on some parts of my career were me sitting on a camera looking into a claim review while checking my email. And it dawns on you that this is really important and paying attention here is absolutely critical. So let's kind of just talk about this. What is a claim review? When I say claim review, what I'm traditionally talking about is going to be, especially in middle market national account space, this is going to be predominantly for workers' compensation insurance because it is the line, no matter the industry, that especially when you're working with large organizations, it's going to have the frequency. You're going to have frequency of claims. It's, shit happens. That's why you have work comp insurance. And so claim reviews are traditionally going to be set up. It's not to say that you can't have claim reviews. I worked with an account that had tons of product liability claims, tons of auto claims, and we did claim reviews to review those. But when I say claim review for the purpose of today's discussion, what I'm talking about is work comp claim reviews. And a claim review is going to be the three parts of the party coming together to review claims of the work comp nature. It's going to have your insurance carrier, the adjuster assigned to the claim. It's going to have the buyer. And for buyers out there, I talk a lot about CFOs. I had a lot of clients where the CFO didn't come to claim reviews, and I had a lot of clients where they maybe came every now and then. But it's always going to include whoever's in charge of safety, traditionally rolling up through human resources, but not always, or a dedicated safety professional. Essentially, whoever's in charge of work comp claims, whoever owns them within the organization needs to be on that call. And then for brokers out there, you're obviously going to be part of that meeting. You've heard me talk about this. Anytime that the insurance carrier is interacting with your customer, you bet your ass that you should be there because it is your job to manage that relationship. And if you're lucky enough and fortunate enough, the company I used to work for, we had dedicated work comp claims specialists within our team who did a lot of the heavy lifting. And I'll talk about the roles of the meeting here as we get into it, but somebody who would be prepping and working and helping facilitate this meeting. Before we jump into that, work comp claim reviews are a tool, but they are, I don't want to use the word perk, but they are a service offering provided by the insurance company. So buyers, brokers, we talk about claim reviews and you come to expect claim reviews, but it is a service offering. And it is a service offering from your insurance carriers because they have to deploy resources in order to make those meetings happen, mainly time and energy. And when I say time and energy, I'm talking about the adjusters because the claim review is going to have live updates. It's a status check. It's an update on claims at a moment in time. And it's coming directly from the person who's closest to the claim, meaning it's coming from the adjuster, the person responsible for setting reserves, directing treatment, interacting with the injured employee the most about their treatment. And so that adjuster's time when they have 150 to 200 plus claims on their desk is a valuable asset. If all they did was claim reviews all day, they wouldn't be able to clear claims. And then buyers, you'd be upset that your claim hasn't been closed out. And so when I say it's a service offering for brokers and buyers, you need to negotiate this on the front end. And I started to see in the last 5 years I was practicing that not getting stingy, but carriers were more challenging on offering claim reviews. It used to be, hey, we're going to do quarterly claim reviews. And everybody said, okay. Now, in the last 5-6 years, I've seen carriers say, well, here are what I'm offering. Here's the parameters in which I'm willing to offer a claim review. We'll only look at claims that are open and over $25,000 in incurred loss, or we're only going to look at lost time claims. And no, we're not going to do 4. We were only going to do 2. So I'm going to talk about some best practices because as a broker, I always ask for 4 claim reviews. And even when there was pushback, I would always say, let's at least start from a position of 4 and let's talk about the necessity. And brokers and buyers, here's my general overall opinion about claim reviews. What I witnessed over my career is that claim reviews became a meeting that would delay action on claims that needed to happen today. So one of the things that I always talk about is don't delay what you can do today. And that's so true. When we're talking about managing, especially larger incurred loss claims or lost time claims that are hitting things like the experience mod, which I just did an episode on, what we're really talking about is things that, need our attention. Claim, especially complex work comp claims, are kind of living, breathing problems. You have to manage them. They're not quick, easy fixes. So if you have a question on a claim, I saw times in my career where a customer of mine would say, I've had a problem with the direction of this claim for the last, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and I knew we had a claim review coming up. Well, if you're waiting for a claim review, you're taking advantage. I'd rather you have no claim reviews as an organization, because then what's your default? If you didn't have a claim review and you had a question, you pick up the phone, you call the adjuster. You pick up the phone, you call me, the broker. And so it is not a substitute for dealing with claims. It is not, oh, we'll wait for the claim review and then we'll talk about it. Because then you're being lazy with the management of your claims. You're not solving a problem that could result in additional money spent for treatment that maybe isn't needed. And so you're always going to make sure that you have the right negotiation with your insurance carrier, specifically if you're renewing your program or if you're switching carriers. I always, when I switched carriers with my clients, made sure that claim reviews were an important part. Here's what I expect. Will you offer this? Can I get that in writing? When you renew your insurance, hey, I wanted to make sure that we can still get quarterly claim reviews. What is the median in which I'm going to have a claim review? Are we going to do them in person? That used to be a thing. Adjusters used to even fly out to do claim reviews in person. Now, COVID changed things with, the more advancement in telecommunication. I don't think claim reviews necessarily need to be in person, but I do think having them on Zoom or on a digital meeting is helpful. Once again, as a broker, you absolutely want the adjuster to have some kind of personal connection to your client. And that is something that I think is really meaningful and really important. And so the more you can make these personal connections, especially during a claim review, the better you are. Likewise, when you're negotiating a claim review, the other thing that you should be talking about with your insurance carrier is, can I have a dedicated claim adjuster? And again, insurance carriers are protective about deploying the resources of their adjusters because it is a very challenging role to fill. And these adjusters are very overloaded with claims, in my experience. But you always want to ask for a dedicated adjuster. And if you have premium that's over $500,000 in standard lines premium, or a work comp program over $500,000, you should be able to, out of a good carrier, get them to promise, based on need and frequency, we're going to do quarterly claim reviews. And you should have an argument to say, especially as you get closer to $1 million in premium, I want a dedicated lost time adjuster. You're not going to get an adjuster to handle every paper cut and every ice pack, especially as those become more automated in the AI and the digital medical world. But for lost time claims, meaty claims, surgeries, things that require a little bit more attention before they go off kilter, you should be able to get a dedicated adjuster. And those are the claims that everybody's paying attention to. Those are the claims that customers are focused on. It's the person who's been out for 2 months rehabbing a shoulder surgery. Those are the claims you really want to have somebody that you're familiar with. And that becomes a real asset in managing your work comp program if you're a buyer, to have that person that you know. Anytime there's a really bad situation going on with one of my team members that involves, a pretty serious injury, I want to know that so-and-so on the other end of the line, someone that I trust to return phone calls, someone that's going to demonstrate consistency. Because again, buyers, your team member that handles work comp claims is a consistent face for your employees, consistent face for them when they're going through this injury or this trauma or whatever it is. Likewise, you want to have consistency from the position of the insurance carrier, which they might already be predisposed to think doesn't care, just wants to not pay bills. You want to have some consistency and you want to build a relationship. So these claim reviews, whether you're doing them quarterly or semi-annually, and like I mentioned, I never really pushed. I always wanted to have the quarterly claim review at my disposal, but I would be the first one to tell my clients, pick up the phone. If you got an issue with a claim, call the adjuster, call me, the broker, call a member of our work comp team. Don't delay what you can do today just because you have a claim review coming up in 3 weeks. The claim review is a status update. It's a status update. It's an opportunity for people who don't deal with the claim day in and day out to come to the table. Oftentimes, the adjuster is regurgitating information that they live and breathe. It's their file to another person on the phone at the client who also lives and breathes that information because it's their employee. The claim review is a glorified presentation to all the people who peripherally are involved in the claims, like myself, like the CFO who pops in to kind of get an update. And so don't delay what you can do today, because the claim review is not an action meeting. It is an update meeting. It is a status meeting. And so once you treat it as such, and if you have a well-oiled machine, a couple of things can happen. I don't need to have a quarterly claim review. Oh, well, we only have 2 open claims and I already know what's going on with them. Let's cancel this meeting. So you want to preserve the opportunity to have them, especially if it's an important opportunity for people who are not touching the claim day to day to get updated on it. You want to make the ability to have them for that presentation status update purpose, but you might not necessarily need them if you don't have any claim activity, which would be a great thing. Or if there's 2 open claims and there's nothing new going on with them, you can save the time. And brokers, When you have the option for quarterly claim reviews, where you go back and you say, hey, we're 3 weeks away. I don't think we need to have this claim review. Let's cancel it. You've now done something nice for the insurance carrier. You've given time back. So always make sure you're negotiating your adjuster, if you can get a dedicated lost time adjuster, and the frequency, because that's a service offering. It's not an automatic that you can just say you count on and you can get no matter who your insurance carrier is. So when to do it? It is really important to think about the timing of specifically one claim review. If you listen to the experience modification factor program that I put out about a week ago, you'll understand that when you think about an experience mod for guaranteed cost programs, it is triggered. The calculation of that experience mod, which becomes a financial multiplier, is done at 6 months prior to the renewal date on what's called the unit stat card. It's a picture in time of the losses 6 months ahead of when that number becomes important. Always, always, always make sure that if you're having any type of claim review, that claim review should probably be 5 months into the policy period. It should probably be at a time that's right before that unit stat card gets released. Because if you get into a claim review, if you find that something is maybe over reserved, meaning a claim is reserved for $100,000, but it's only because the adjuster hasn't updated the new course of treatment and it should be reserved at $50,000, or the adjuster is being way too conservative in their management of the claims. If you can move that needle down on that claim prior to that unit stat card at 6 months, you're now reducing and having a higher likelihood of reducing the experience mod calculation that's going to come up 7 months from now. These are a pain in the ass to schedule because of all the parties that are involved. But timing is really flexible. But I would say no matter what, if you're only going to do one claim review, it's got to be right around and before that 6 month mark to make sure that you're getting your claims as tight as possible prior to that unit stat card. Now, keep in mind, 3-year claims, the claims in that current term aren't going to be on that experience mod. So we're really talking about prior years. So what makes a good claim review, in my opinion? And I've sat through a lot of them. I just admitted that at times I was a little complacent in my claim review meetings because I wasn't the center of attention. I wasn't the star of the show. I showed up to claim reviews for a couple different reasons as a broker, for you brokers listening out there. Number one, I wanted to make sure that if somebody showed up that was expecting me to be on the claim review, that I was at least plugged into the claim review. And I did most of mine over Zoom. We would maybe do them in person, but I showed up to make sure that I was checkmark attended. In case somebody said Derek's not doing anything, well, he's on the claim reviews, even if I wasn't participating. Second reason I showed up to claim reviews, and I was, neurotic about this, is I want to make sure that the interaction between the customer and the insurance carrier is going well. I want to make sure that the insurance carrier is showing up prepared. I want to make sure that all their parties were showing up when they were supposed to. I want to make sure that the adjuster seems like they have a good handle on the file. I want to see how my buyer is interacting with the adjuster. Do they sound pissed? Do they sound annoyed with the strategy on claims? Do they disagree with it? And the third reason that I would show up to claim reviews is because it gave me the opportunity. And this is the big reason that I would tell my CFOs who didn't always come to claim reviews to pop in to try to come to one a year, because it gave me an opportunity to think about and talk about the types of losses that are happening. And then your mind can start saying, are we trending? Are we seeing a trend in one direction? Is there some kind of risk management? Is there some kind of engineering? Is this the fifth shoulder injury that we've seen as a result of poor lifting technique? And those are the opportunities that your clients expect you to mine out of what is a tactical meeting to put into a strategy delivery. And so you're always listening for that. That doesn't mean that I had to not multitask. It meant that I showed up, I was present, I was listening, and I was listening for some key things. So what makes up a good claim review is it's typically going to have something sent out. I would say a packet gets sent out 3 or 4 days before the claim review. That's either going to be prepared by the broker or it's going to be prepared by the insurance carrier. And it's going to give a list of all the claims that you're going to review over the course of the claim review with the adjusters that are going to come on and present it. A claim review should have the actual adjuster presenting it. Buyers, if you're having a claim review done and they just have a representative from the insurance company, some kind of like claim executive who's just going to present the findings, it's not worth it. You need the adjuster. You need the adjuster because the adjuster gives pieces of information relative to that claim that you otherwise aren't going to know. I keep calling the injured worker. They won't call me back. I suspect that this injured worker isn't really hurt. I want to do surveillance. Some of the ways that the adjuster talks about the claims and the interactions with the injured worker become really important for the management of the claim, and you can pick up a lot of subtleties. You can tell just by the way an adjuster talks about a claim if this claim is maybe headed in the wrong direction. And so a claim review is going to be presented. They're going to talk through the details. Here's what it's reserved at. Here's the course of treatment. And brokers, if you're an expert or if you have someone on your team, it's an opportunity to push back. Have we tried this? Have we thought about this? Do we think that this injury is a valid workplace injury? And we won't go into this in depth, but the one tool that insurance carriers and employers have at their disposal to challenge the validity of injuries is what's called an independent medical examination. And you can only do an IME one time. That's kind of your one challenge card, if you will, like a NFL game. And so the timing of when you use that challenge card, how you use that challenge card to challenge a doctor, since if you can't control a doctor, is really important. So strategy like that. It's also an opportunity for brokers and for buyers to push back on the adjuster. It is not a secret that some insurance carriers over reserve claims. It is better for an insurance adjuster who's handling a work comp claim to be conservative. It's easier for them to say, I reserved $100,000 and it closed at $70,000. It's better financially for the books of the insurance company for them to say, I reserved it at $20,000 and it spent $150,000. Nobody likes surprises. But what do we know? We know we want our reserves as low as possible to manage that experience mod. So the claim review is this formal opportunity to push back on adjusters and whoever else is on from the insurance carrier to try and do our best to lower those claims. Mind you, a broken work comp program on the service side is not going to be a successful insurance program. And so for brokers out there, my last thing to say is their claim review is an opportunity, especially if you have a large book and you have a lot of claims and a lot of clients. You probably don't know about all of the claims. Claim review is an opportunity to make sure that you have your shit together when it comes to large claims. When it comes to the amputation that took place that resulted in OSHA, you probably made sure that the OSHA thing went good, but you probably don't know how is Joe who lost his finger, how's his recovery going? And those are the claims that I saw time and time in my career where you're going to run into the owner of the company or the CFO, or you're going to run into a high ranking executive and they're going to say, they're going to ask about that. They're not going to ask about the person with the medical only or the 4 days of lost time that came back quickly. They're going to ask about the big claims. And the more you can say, yeah, I just heard on the claim review that so-and-so is, 2 weeks from recovery and the, permanent partial disability is going to get paid out and we're going to move on from this. Now you sound plugged into your insurance program. And it's an easy way to participate in a meeting that you don't have to lead. You don't necessarily have to prep. That gives you a pulse check on how your insurance carrier is performing and for you to be aware of what's going on with the safety of your client.